Good morning. Good afternoon. Matt Roberts, Head of Sustainability at Landmarc Support Services. You're allowed to say who or what. We are not a big business. We are owned by two large businesses. We're owned by a UK PLC called Interserve and an American organisation called PAE. In America, everything seems to be initials. That used to stand for Pacific Architects and Engineers, and they do what it says on the tin. We work in the defence sector, and as a result of that, we're the UK's largest land management business. So I can't really talk about towns and cities and high streets, but I can talk about rural communities and villages and how they're very similar, and the challenges are very similar. We're a support services business, and you're allowed to say a what. At the back of the room somewhere, over there, is somebody who pushes faders and operates equipment and laid out the room. That's what support services is, facilities management and so on. I used to work many years ago in theatre and television, and I always think that we're the stage managers, we're the technical crew of daily life, of real life, is what the support services sector and the FM industry does. And we're everywhere, but we rarely wear our own uniform or our own badge. We're normally dressed up as somebody from Sainsbury's or somebody from William Hill or whatever. So you don't really know that we exist. Supply chain and responsible business are incredibly important to us. We are a very rural business, which means we don't have a lot of choice. I spend a lot of time talking to my commercial colleagues who are constantly yearning for framework agreements because they can save 20%. And I keep saying, but actually, a framework agreement doesn't work if you're a very rural business because those framework agreements rely on big sheds and call centres. And we're in very rural places. We start off in the Orkney Isles. That's that thing in the box on the map. Remember? Top right-hand corner? Just south of the Shetland Isles, where my wife comes from. And we finish down in Cornwall. You'll find us at the far end of West Wales in Pembrokeshire, right over on the east coast in Holbeach on the Wash, down in the Kent marshes. We're in very rural Britain. Quite often there is 3 feet of snow on the ground for 5 months of the year. People are really important to us, and local people are really important to us because the drive to our facility is often 8 miles long. I don't mean the drive to work, I mean the drive from the gate to the office is 8 miles long. So how long have you got to get? So those rural communities that are right on the end of our doorstep are really important. We look after the military. The military look after lots of space. We look after 500,000 acres. That's about 1% of the UK. Lots and lots and lots and lots of important environmental features, lots of cultural heritage. But we do everything else as well. We feed soldiers, we run the IT systems, we do the bookings, we maintain buildings. And we need people that do all these things. So the first thing we need is people, and they are rural people. So we have to have a very responsible attitude towards them, and that's what it means for us. We need rural management services. And again, we need local people that do that because I've yet to find a FTSE 100 company that can do dry stone walling. And I have about 8,000 miles of dry stone walls to look after. So if there's a FTSE 100 that wants to get into that, then there is a market for it. But we use lots and lots of one-man bands for that type of activity, who we have to get through all our supply chain processes, all our procurement processes. And for me, responsible business is about helping those people get through those processes. Because we have very high barriers to entry in the defence sector and in government contracting. Government sets high barriers for a reason, because people like us are looking after critical infrastructure, vulnerable people, things that cannot go wrong. So there's a high barrier to entry, but we have to get those SMEs that are vital to our business over that barrier. And that's a big part of what we do. And it's those relationships with those SMEs that are absolutely fundamental. So my staff and the staff in our business go out there and talk to our supply chain constantly. And they're not big corporate relationship meetings. They're quite often coffee in the front of a transit van, parked in the middle of nowhere, either admiring the view because it's a lovely day like today, or cursing the view because you can't actually see it because it's covered in fog, or hidden beneath the snow. Why do we like SMEs? Because you're small, medium-sized enterprises. You're very innovative. We're quite a large organisation. We turn over about £100 million a year. I've just said we're small, but quite a large organisation. About £100 million a year and about 1,400 people. We're not an SME, but we're not a global corporate either. But we need your innovation and your agility to react to the challenges that we face, the problems that we solve. Working in the defence space means that they do throw some interesting curveballs at us. Defence is very fast moving. Anybody who watches the news knows that the world has changed very quickly, both because of the conflicts that we've been involved in over the last 15 to 20 years in both Iraq and Afghanistan, and in Kosovo before that, and in Northern Ireland before that. We've had to keep changing the estate, but in the current theatre of conflict, which we're all leaving in the near future, things change. The enemy, how the client sees it, keeps coming up with new ways of causing problems, so they have to find ways of training for that, which means we have to provide those facilities. We don't actually train the soldiers, but we do everything else. So we have to find people who can come up with innovative solutions to some really challenging problems, which are not normally the ones that the SME sector face. So you're very agile, you're very easy to understand, because we can talk to the people at the top and the bottom and the middle, and that's incredibly important for us. You're very transparent, and hopefully we are in return. You're very simple to audit. That's a really dull expression. But actually, if you're working with corporates, we all do audit. We all audit our suppliers. We all do assurance. We all ask you lots of questions. We need to make sure that you're continuing to leap over those high barriers. And you need to be quite straightforward in the way you do that. And you love challenges in as much as we like challenges. And we like to share them with people, because we have to find those solutions. And even in an organisation which is, we're big but we're not vast, moving things takes time. There are endless committees to get through. There are endless decision makers you've got to convince. Helping get through that is what SMEs do, and you can respond really quickly to some of those challenges that we have. So how do we help? We have a program called Landmarc 100, which is a series of awards which we hand out to new businesses, to new startups, to people with great ideas but they don't know how to get from where they are, from flash to bang, from idea to product, proof of concept stuff. Tiny, weeny little grants, £1,000, £2,000, £3,000, to take that brilliant idea that exists on the back of a beer mat or a fag packet, although they're quite rare these days, and turn it into something that we might actually be able to use. Just a little, and we then offer you some technical support to go with it from some of the people that we have in our business, because we need to get those new ideas moving. I say we're a rural business, so we have rural enterprise hubs, places where you can go, the next step, not the arches under the railways that Mary was talking about, but somewhere you can go that's not the spare room, the kitchen table, the shed at the bottom of the garden, somewhere where there's other people to bounce ideas off, other ideas, other people to help you with that. Where we can offer sort of things like, free internet and photocopying and slightly better broadband. And that's what we do. We have a Rural Business Connector. We are members of BITC's Rural Action Programme, the Prince's Rural Action Programme, and we have one of their Rural Business Connectors in Northumberland. Business Connectors, as hopefully most of you know, are all about connecting businesses that want to help with organisations and individuals that are looking for some help. And Cheryl Anderson, our Rural Business Connector, is on the ground in what they call the Northumberland Uplands, up around Otterburn and just outside Newcastle, where she's trying to connect those communities together with organisations that can help. We've done quite a lot of social value reporting. Social value is a new hurdle that anybody in the public sector contracting world has to overcome. We adopted it a couple of years ago and produced one of the first reports around how we create social value, and some of the discussions that we have with business is around how the value is created, not by necessarily always using social enterprises, we do use social enterprises, but by using lots and lots of SMEs. For us, we're creating lots of social value by using lots and lots of small businesses in those rural communities, because without those rural communities, with those businesses, those rural communities will fail, and they fail really fast. And they may look lovely and chocolate boxy on the outside, but there's nobody living in them during the week. They're all there at the weekends, or they're commuting out of town, out of those villages, to go to work. I always tell the story of we grit roads in Wales. We have a site called Sennybridge in the middle of Wales, just on the edge of the Brecon Beacons. In order to get the soldiers to the training area, we have to grit the roads because it's one of those places where there's lots of snow. I had a big fight with our commercial guys about getting a maintenance contract for our gritters, because they had reckoned that if we went to these big kind of national suppliers for maintenance of plant, we could get a big cost saving. And I said, I don't want that. We use a guy called Mark Lewis. Mark has us at the top of his list, because if he maintains our gritter, we keep the roads open and the school buses keep running. And that matters to me, as you can see, and to him, because if his kids go to school, his wife goes to work, his business keeps going. That's really important. We've also started working on this thing called natural capital. So we've got lots of land and lots of people talking about natural capital accounting and lots of natural capital reporting and ecosystem services. And we're a really practical business. And government policy is great, and academic theory is marvellous, and natural capital accounting that's run by the UN is really exciting. But I want to know how I can do it on the ground. So we go to our SME supply chain to say, guys, can you tell us how that we can use our understanding of this natural capital and ecosystem services to make better businesses, to make our estate more effective, to make our client happier, and to keep your business going in that rural community. That's really important. And the civilian application of some of the military technology that we see going around us. So that's quite important. Again, we're all familiar with drones, and we may have an opinion about drones. I'm really interested in drones because I think I can use them for really dull civilian applications where we spend a lot of time walking down those 8,000 miles of dry stone walls and fences. Can I just fly down them with a drone and take some pictures and actually do something slightly more interesting? Because whilst it's really nice to be doing fence inspections on a beautiful sunny day in the middle of Dartmoor, it's bloody awful in the middle of February when you can't see the next fence post, and you still need to make sure the fences are there and maintained to keep the sheep out of the ranges, because sheep and live explosives have an interesting mix. So that's what we are about, and that's how we're helping, and that's how we think SMEs can contribute to us being a responsible business, because we take it really seriously. Thank you.